Hey, everybody, welcome in. It is time for Three Guys Before the Game. Not your normal episode if you are counting them up at home. This is number 400.
400.
Our 400th episode. From our humble beginnings in August of 2017, we have reached our 400th episode. But ladies and gentlemen, I need not tell you that there is no joy in Mudville. As we begin this podcast, there's no joy at all.
Shocked, I tell you.
Yeah, the title, Devastating Defeat. You know the story. West Virginia falling to the Kansas Jayhawks Saturday night, 55-42. And we're going to jump in and we are going to talk about it in detail. So we titled it Devastating Defeat because you know why? Because it was, and it is. And so a lot of questions come out of that. Where do you go from here? That happens to be the biggest question going forward. As usual, we will have your texts, but I will give you a heads up on the text. Well over 100 of them, well over 100 texts. So simple to say that we're not going to be able to read each and every one. However, there was commonality. There was a similarity among the theme of those texts. And so in short order, we will get to your points. May not hear your text read, but your point will be well taken, and we'll go through it in pieces here in a second. We'll look forward and talk about this coming week, but before we do that, and the rest of the season, but before we do that, let's just jump right in here and talk about what happened on Saturday night. Senator, I'm going to start with you. Normally I go with the old dude, but I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
Why did that happen, in your opinion?
Too many missed assignments, it appeared, on the defensive side of the ball. It was, listen, you did enough offensively there to win that game. That offense looked great, including early. Hoppy, they came out right away. That big strike to Sam James took advantage of the Kansas defensive back falling down. You scored to go up 14-0. You felt really good. Kansas did a fabulous job of adjusting and identifying where they could attack West Virginia, I thought. And once they found that, they didn't stop. They kept attacking it, and then it put West Virginia in a position where it didn't know what to do. It didn't know what Kansas was going to do. Run outside, run option, throw down the seam, throw the football. Jalen Daniels, I thought, was really good. But I thought overall, the way Kansas attacked West Virginia, it won that chess match and battle. I thought I was very impressed with Kansas. Extremely disappointing defensive effort from West Virginia because you just really haven't seen that under Neil Brown. That's been the consistent part of the Neil Brown era, is the defense has found a way to show up. It just simply did not on Saturday.
Mr. Kercheval.
That was more disappointing than the Pitt loss in some respects because, you know, Pitt, you were not favored, but it was a close game. You lost the game. You made some mistakes. It's a rival, all that kind of stuff. I get all that, and that was a devastating loss. But then you go, okay, because it's good because Kansas coming in, you beat Kansas, and you didn't. You did not only did you lose to Kansas, but Kansas offense, you couldn't stop them. You could, after the first two series, you could not stop the Kansas offense. And as Brad said, credit to the Kansas offense, credit to Jalen Daniels, who actually had a heck of a game. But you just do not, and West Virginia's defense had a horrible game. You just do not expect that at home, at night, to lose to Kansas. That was an absolute shocker, and I think Mountaineer Nation is more in shock about that than the Pitt loss.
I forgot to do something to start the show.
Read our sponsors.
Three Guys Before the Game is brought to you by the Burdette Camping Center, the only warranty forever RV dealer in all of West Virginia. Visit them at BurdetteCamping.com. If you listened to our last episode, you knew that the folks at Burdette were putting out $50 for each tackle for a loss that West Virginia recorded. They got 3. So that's $150. which you'd pick up on the ground if you found it. So $150 on parts, sales, and service available to you at the Burdette Camping Center. You can visit them in Winfield and on their website at burdettecamping.com. That's burdettecamping.com. 2 T's next to each other. 3 guys also brought to us by your full-service Konica Minolta dealer in West Virginia. That's Comax Business Systems. You can visit them on the site at comaxwv.com. And did you know that Comax offers managed IT services, managed voice and phone services. Comax's 24/7 remote monitoring will give you the peace of mind you need knowing that they always have your networks back. So if you're a business owner and you've been wondering, okay, what do I need to do? Am I properly protected with so much going on? Well, they do so much more than that. As I said, manage voice, manage phone, and 24/7 remote monitoring. Check them out, the great people. ComaxWV.com. 10th time they've been named an elite dealer, an exclusive award. No other dealer in the state of West Virginia has ever received it. They're a 10-time winner. So, what is my take to what we had and what we saw out there as we all try to figure it out? So my take is that the basic assumption that we all made when the season began, that the defense would be okay because it has been okay, good enough to win in the past 3 years, is an incorrect assumption, because that game was lost because of West Virginia's defense, and as Brad and as Hoppy just kind of indicated, the inability for that defense to make adjustments on the fly. And as a result, they were playing, in a figurative sense, on roller skates all night. They just didn't know where to lock in on, and it never corrected itself. And as a result, that was the end of the day right there. So it got me to thinking, okay, so what has been the biggest change? Well, I looked at the defensive stats, and I brought this up during Hoppy's Coffee Clutch last hour. So I looked back on the stats yesterday to see who were West Virginia's top tacklers on Saturday. And the top 7 tacklers for WVU in Saturday's game did not even play in the game last year against Kansas at Kansas, and 6 of those 7 dudes were not on the team last year. So West Virginia's leading tacklers this past week were Hershey McLaren, Lance Dixon. He was on the team last year, but he was injured, didn't play in last year's Kansas game. Marcus Floyd, Aubrey Burks, who was redshirted last year, Rashad Ajayi, Lee Koba, and Jazir Cox. I said, okay, so who were the top tacklers in last year's game at Kansas? Josh Chandler-Samito, gone. St. McLeod, gone. Sean Mahone, gone. Daryl Porter Jr., gone. Alonzo Adai, Hakeem Mesidor, Deshaun Stevens. Those were your top 7 last year. My point to all that is that loss of talent, for whatever reason that it's happened, through the transfer portal, through whatever, has left West Virginia's defense, especially, as we knew, at the safety and the corner spots, not ready yet to make adjustments on the fly, and as a result, they got caught, and it cost them a game. That's my take.
Yeah, and so the question moves to how quickly that group can get itself righted. I think that's the challenge, because we can sit here and give reasons, and I think that's a reason. And I know we'll get texts because, Hoppy, I said this on the postgame, and I got all kinds of texts that I'm making excuses. You can call it whatever you want. If you're asking for a reason why the defense struggled, that's it right there. I mean, just go in the defensive backfield for a second. You just said 3 of the names. I'll give you a couple others. Jackie Matthews, Nick Troy Fortune, Tyke Smith, Daryl Porter Jr., all guys that were in that defensive backfield that would be playing right now. Add in Hakeem Mesidor. That's 2 freshman All-American there that I just named that are not on that roster. So West Virginia's defensive, its use out of the portal to replenish that defense has not equated person to person yet. It worked offensively, went out and found a quarterback, among others, that have helped you, but it hasn't defensively. So one of the reasons you're struggling, you would hope that defense would be able to plug and play, but so far it has not been able to through a game and a half. Now, I think the first half there, Pitt's offensive scheme helped you and played into your hands. Once they figured out they had to throw the ball, then you saw some of the deficiencies come forth. So you've got that. How quickly can that unit get it together? And then 2, you saw mistakes again. I mean, at some point, this group, this team, this program has got to stop making mistakes that are costing it games. It had two massive ones, one in the special teams and another penalty that you just simply can't get in the moment in overtime when you had them stopped. You had Kansas stopped. You were going to force a near 50-yard field goal, and they kept the drive alive with a penalty. The mistakes have been absolutely catastrophic when they've come, and at some point, somebody's got to take ownership of those mistakes and keep those from happening as well.
Yep. So let's take a look. I jumped over onto the offensive side. What was different than last year's game against Kansas? Last year, West Virginia outscored Kansas off of turnovers, 6-zip. Got a couple of field goals. The turnovers were even in that game. They got outscored this year off of turnovers. Total offense in last year's game for West Virginia, 436. This year, 501. Yards per play this year, better than last year. In 2021, West Virginia scored on 6 of 11 drives. This year, they scored on 6 of 7 drives in regulations with 4 touchdowns. They ended the half. They just burned out the clock. They punted to start the second half, then 2 field goals and a TD. They had drives of 4, 12, 4, 11, 13, 14, and 12. So, to the point, yeah, the offense, you can see, got a chance here, right? The thing has shaken itself to a point where, okay, better. But it takes 3 aspects of a game: specials, defense, and offense. And as you said, the question now is, how quickly can you get this defense lined up?
Well, one other thing on last year's game too, because that was a close game. You just mentioned that. But what was the difference there? It was mistakes. Jalen Daniels threw 2 red zone interceptions last year. So West Virginia's defense not only didn't allow them to score, they came up big with 2 turnovers, and Daniels made the catastrophic mistakes throwing the 2 when they were going in to score. They just didn't. Daniels was very good. West Virginia's defense was not, and it made the mistakes this year. We keep saying it. That's 2 games out of 2. Teams lose games a lot more often than other teams win it.
And the defense just could not make a play when they needed to. Kansas, 73% on third down. 11 of 15.
Head shaking.
11 of 15. I mean, you cannot. I mean, that's you won't find that number in a game, right? Unless it's somebody dominates somebody 60-0. I mean, that's an unbelievable number, and it couldn't get stops. Couldn't get them off the field. And you would think at some point that maybe Kansas would make a mistake or two, and they really didn't.
But you know why you couldn't get them off the field on third down? Their average down distance was 3 or 4.6 yards. So they were in third and short every single time on average. Well, that's almost impossible to stop when you've got a good scheme and you're running good offense there. West Virginia just put themselves behind the 8 ball with the situations they were in there.
Yeah, they were playing ahead of the stick. Right? They were playing ahead of the stick. You couldn't get them into negative yardage situations on third and longs because, why did I just say? They had 3 TFLs the entire game. No sacks and 3 TFLs. So there wasn't those negative yardage, big, long down situations. And it proved to be absolutely fatal for the Mountaineers.
I do think that, and I know the Mountaineer fans don't want to hear this, and we're not making excuses. I do think that Jalen Daniels played a really nice game. I thought he was very good. I thought he made great decisions. Ran the ball well, was on target with his passes. He was pretty good. The defense had something to do with that, but he was pretty good on Saturday.
No one wants to give the other team credit, but that's fine. He was more than pretty good. I mean, he was really excellent. His ability to throw it and to run it, his ability to run it was perhaps the biggest story to this game, where in the past they said, yeah, he's got running ability, but he's a passer. Well, they went heavy on that running ability because whenever you do that, it challenges a defense, especially a defense that isn't sure where to be. And as a result, they paid the price.
And that's where I credit their staff. Their staff did a better job of adjusting. That's not what Jalen Daniels has done. Yet in this game, they said, you know what? We think we can have an effect doing that. They made an adjustment. West Virginia couldn't adjust back.
Yeah, what did they do? I mean, the first 2 drives, they didn't get anything going, right? And all of a sudden they changed. Like all of a sudden Daniels is running the running option and he's doing, RPOs, and all of a sudden, boom, West Virginia couldn't stop him. So they made a great adjustment after those first 2 drives.
Part of, and this is what I know we joke around this, but I do mean all due respect to Kansas here when I say it, not our normal joking around, all due respect. I do mean that. I think they're better. They are moving in the right direction. They've got more playmakers than they've had. But it doesn't change the fact this is a program that came in that had lost 56 of its previous 58 road games, guys. Right?
Or
57 of their 58 before they got in. They'd beaten Texas last year. That's a game you have to win. West Virginia had won 34 consecutive games as a double-digit favorite. Fourth longest streak in the nation. Credit Brett McMurphy for the last part of that stat. 34 consecutive double-digit wins, and you didn't get it done. So this is one of those, that's 2 losses, 2 different categories, in my opinion. This was a game you just simply had to get.
Let me give you another number. This is the Metro News Talkline flash poll from my coffee clutch, and this is anecdotal, it's not scientific. But I think it is.
You still do that show?
Mondays and Fridays.
Someone had
So
said
I did one today.
Someone had said you kind of taking a sabbatical hiatus or something. I didn't know you were still doing it. Go
I'm
ahead.
around.
Okay.
But I think this is indicative of the reaction. And this was after the Pitt game. Are you optimistic or pessimistic about the remainder of the WVU football season? This was after the Pitt loss. 74% optimistic, 26% pessimistic, 867 votes. Okay, still pretty optimistic. After the Kansas game, almost twice as many votes, over 1,300 votes. So I think people were motivated to vote. Same question, only 15% were optimistic and 85% pessimistic. And again, that's just kind of a take the temperature, but I think that is indicative of how large the disappointment is among Mountaineer Nation after that loss. Those people stayed there. It was raining. They stayed, and the letdown was tremendous. So now I think you've lost people. Okay, I think you've lost fans. You'll still have the core, but you've lost fans. You had a chance to get them back Saturday because it would have been, okay, Gold Rush, conference win, move on, here we go, beat Towson. Now you've lost people, and they're off, and you have to do something to get them back.
And that's win games. That's win games. So you go out and you win Saturday, then you have to start to look where else do these wins come from. You're going to simply have to go get one you didn't expect to win that makes up for this one that you gave back that you probably should have had.
Yeah.
So that's what it comes down to.
So a couple of things, and we're going to get into text here in just a second. As I said, over 100 texts came in, well over 100 texts. Hoppy had over 1,300 people vote on his poll. And to me, I understand the people's and the fans' levels of frustration. That's a good thing, to be quite honest with you. Right now it sucks and it's bad that everyone's mad. But that's why this program is what it is, because people care. And if you didn't care, and if 113 people voted on Hoppy's thing and we got 7 texts, then people just don't care. So it's important and it matters. I totally get that. We totally get that part of the deal. Totally understand it. And that's why West Virginia football, West Virginia athletics means so much. Totally, totally get that. So we're going to jump into texts. And as I said, you want to hit this music? Should we hit the music? Oh, yeah. Think how far we've come, guys. We didn't have a song first episode. Now 400 episodes in, we got a song. Oh, there's the first shirt.
Picture from the first one.
First shirt that Hoppy wore on there.
Oh, I do have a different shirt. I still have that
Heavy,
shirt.
heavy orange theme for you. I thought I was the one that had more orange. You,
Big Tennessee fan. Yeah.
That's about it.
Senator, you look beardless.
I had more hair.
Oh, you did. I mean, it's,
Tony, you look the same, pretty much.
thanks, Hop. Appreciate that. Good to see everybody. Yeah. All right, textual healing. We need healing today. Okay. So, as I said, we're not going to get to all of them, just impossible to do. Here's the general theme. Okay, and it'll be shared in some of these texts, but the general theme is what everyone in essence is saying. It's time for a change. Fire Neil Brown. Everyone is bad. Shane Lyons is bad. The thing's not working. Tony, Brad, Hoppy, you are all apologists. You all, are whatever. Homers. Okay, fine. That was the general castigation among the general themes. We're bad people, and everyone wants a change. That's the theme. Okay, so that's fair. It's all out there. So now, Ted in Warrenton begins. Not hyperbolic, not a slight of Kansas, You've been around a while. Did you ever believe we could be this bad?
You know, Ed Harper once told me, the stockbroker who now retired, when I asked him when a stock was declining, I said, wait a minute, how low can it go? He said 0. So it can always be worse, and you have to keep it in context. We tend to be in sports. We tend to be a prisoner of the moment. That was pretty bad the offense again looked pretty good, but the loss coming when it did to who it did, you go, oh my gosh, this is bad. Now I've been around a long time too. I've seen some bad teams. I've seen losses. I think I was at a loss to Richmond. Years ago.
You would have been late 70s, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I've seen some bad teams. Rich's first year.
I would say this to that.
That was a bad team.
This is not a bad team. The offense in the first 2 games is not a bad offense. I would submit that being the case. Now, defensively, you got a hell of a problem. You have given up, on average, 16 more points per game in your first 2 than any other Big 12 team. We're at 46 a game. And next to that is 30 points per game in the number 9 spot. So,
and I think the scary part of that is how it's looked. It's given flashes of 2013. You want to talk about bad? 2013, that defense running around out there had no idea where it was. You'd look up on your screen. I've said this before. There'd be an opponent running, and there would be no West Virginia player on that screen. That you talk about how bad can it get? That's about as bad as I've seen defensively. There were shades of that on Saturday, of guys being just wide open and out of position. The question just remains, I've asked it twice now, how quickly can you get that fixed and back, and to have some level where you can get a couple of stops or force a turnover or bend but don't break, and then can that offense continue to be really good? Because that's the other part of the equation, right?
Yes.
You won games the last couple of years because your defense was vastly ahead of your offense, and you hoped your offense wouldn't screw it up, and then your defense would hold you in games and you could win. It's reverse now is what it looks like through 2 games. Your offense is going to have to score. Your defense has to find a way to get a stop here and there. That's how you're going to have to win games, it appears.
Texter, day after game, digested barely. Offense, fine. C.J. Donaldson probably needs to be playing a whole lot more. I understand there's more to the game than running the ball, but as it stands, the other team knows to target him because when he comes in, they know he's going to carry it. He needs to be on the field more so they can't key on him so heavily. The defense, well, it wasn't a good performance to say the least, and I think Kansas may surprise some people this year. We better learn how to adjust our coverage to cover up for players that aren't ready for this level. Our D-line can only do so much, and they didn't do much this week either. I sure hope we figure out that side of the ball, or it's going to be a long season. From the Greenbrier Ghost, Trice guys. Knowing you guys like to incorporate food into the show, let me give this analogy regarding Neil Brown. Imagine you invested in a restaurant, hired a chef, Neil Brown. Every time you go to the restaurant, the music's great, place looks immaculate, smells great. But when you taste the food, it's average at best. You even spring for authentic San Marzano tomatoes and bring in exotic fruit trees. But even with the improved ingredients, the food remains average. Your chef does everything right except deliver tasty food. What do you do to protect your investment? So he went food and a question.
I'm trying to think of something profound to say. I think that I don't know him well. I think Neil Brown has been a wonderful head coach from the standpoint of how he's handled the public, the kinds of things he's done in the community, the kind of program he is running, how he has embraced the state. There's so many boxes that he has checked, which has been refreshing considering his predecessor. And I really hope for him and the assistants and for Mountaineer Nation, for everybody, that he's successful. But you're going to be judged on wins and losses. You just are. So I don't know. I don't know enough to know why they're, well, I know. I mean, Brad gave a good excuse, not excuse, but a good reason. I mean, there are a lot of reasonable explanations, but you're going to be judged by wins and losses. And this is on Shane Lyons as well, the athletic director who made the hire. And look, you should be as good as, I don't know if you're not going to be Oklahoma, you're not going to be Texas. You should be as good as Kansas State. You should be better than Kansas. You should be as good as Oklahoma State, I think. I mean, same kind of university. You should be as good or better than Texas Tech. You should be. I mean, you should be. That's where you should be. You should not be below them. Fred?
I think that's perfectly said there. And I think I echo those sentiments about Neil Brown. And now it just becomes win. You've just got to win games. And you've got a lot of season left. That's the thing here. And I made the point on your show, there were similar discussions going on after Baylor last year and the way that game looked and the way the defensive side of the ball in particular looked. And that group rallied and got it together and found a way to win some games down the stretch. That's what this group has to do. I mean, they've got to regroup. You figure you get a win over Towson, and then that's a monumentally important game going to Virginia Tech. It always has been. It's been big on the schedule. It becomes bigger, right? It became bigger with a Pitt loss. It became even bigger with a Kansas loss. You've got to find some wins in here. And as Neil continues to search for that program-defining win, that Virginia Tech becomes a massive game on this schedule to see where you are.
And Neil would be the first to admit he knows the only thing that matters is wins and losses. At this level, where today's college football is, you're only judged by your wins and your losses. That's what it is. Philip in Tampa begins deflated. I've got no questions, quips, or funny stories. During the Kansas preview, Hoppy said something to the effect of, we have to be better, farther along than Kansas. Safe to say we're not, just brutal. I've defended the coach 4 years. Unless we go 10-2 this year, much like WVU's performance in the game, there's no defense. Coach can recruit, man of great character, seems to genuinely care. I like him as a neighbor. Unfortunately, none of that wins games. Philip in Tampa. Yep.
Yeah.
Like we just said, it comes down to you've got to get W's. He knows that. Sean in Florida. I know there's going to be a lot of doom and gloom from the text line this week. So I want to commend Bryce Ford Wheaton for coming back after that dropped pass last week to have a monster game. He made some really difficult catches. And I know it's a little easy to overlook because he was expected to be very good, but JT Daniels is everything we were expecting. If you would have told me last year we'd be averaging 36 points per game on offense after the first two, I would have taken it in a heartbeat.
That's the catches stood out. I mean, after the drops the previous week, where you just like, oh, can they clean that up? And the passes and the catches and Bryce Ford Wheaton making catches, they stood out as to how good they were.
So you mean they didn't just continue to drop passes each week moving forward? They got better from week to week?
They did indeed.
Okay,
yes.
So that's, I think, another important reminder. And you're right. That offense, the receiver group was fantastic, all of them. Bryce Ford Wheaton was dominant again. Sam James was good. I was glad to see Caden Prather. We've been asking about Caden Prather now for a year and a half. There it was. There you saw a guy that made some plays. That whole group did a fantastic job. That's a marked difference from what they did the first week, right? They improved. They cleaned up their execution, and the whole thing got a lot better in 1 week. I'll give Greg Hunter some credit on our postgame show. He was trying to provide a ray of hope at the end of the game. So what's the ray of hope here? What can happen? And he drew upon Appalachian State's experience in the first 2 weeks of its season. Sean Clark, West Virginia native, went in and gave up, I believe, 61 points to North Carolina. People are beside themselves. Oh, App State can't play defense. What are they doing? What's Sean Clark doing? Can't coach defense. They can't do anything. What's that defensive staff doing? They go on the road to Texas A&M playing Jimbo Fisher, another West Virginia native, by the way, right? With 152 five-star recruits on that roster, and they couldn't move the ball. Had 200 yards of offense on that Appalachian State team. So you talk about a turn from a defense from 1 week to the next. That particular program did that. I thought that was a pretty good analogy. I'm not suggesting West Virginia's defense is ready to make that leap just yet, but I think the receiver group and college football shows you it doesn't have to stay that same. That's what's important for this group. How quickly can they bounce back and make it better?
Yeah. Stephen in Virginia. Is there a form I can fill out to request the Mountaineer coaching staff to be my pallbearers when I die? I'd like them to help me let me down once more.
Oh, harsh. Disappointment. I mean, major disappointment. No one expected West Virginia to lose, okay?
Yeah.
No one.
Chip in Spring Hill, Tennessee. Here's something you can cover on this week's show. Why do other teams seem to be getting better, but we just can't get over the hump? That, my friend, is the multi-million-dollar question. Not 1 million. That's the multi-million-dollar question. You know, you mentioned you got a pass drop in Pitt. and you had the muff here Saturday, and then you had the late hit on the quarterback. Then you go back last year at Oklahoma. You got that ball inside the 2-yard line, and you commit procedure. And then you have the long snap go over the head. I mean, it's always this. It's not like a mistake. It's a fatal shot that just, you can go back and pick it out. Why it happens, I've got zero idea. I think probably because you're playing so close to the line of win and loss, right? There is no great margin on either side for this particular team. Let's face it, years ago when we were playing Rutgers, we could go in and turn it over 4 times and lose the turnover battle and still win by double digits. That margin is no longer there.
No.
And as a result, that's why I think we kind of remember those.
You know, for a lot of games in college where you think the other team, okay, the other team will screw it up, and that happens a lot. But now West Virginia's the team that screws it up.
Yeah. Scopes, spreads, Hoppy to the third power. I will be short and concise. If you could, present your best defensive arguments in favor of Neal Brown.
Well, one is $16 million, number one. Number two is that we talked about all the other things he's done, and I just think you have to get through this season. You know, you have to see how things go this season, see what it looks like, see if you have improvement, and then see where you are. You know, this is not Nebraska. You know, I mean, Scott Frost was going to get fired this year anyway, right? I mean, he was going to get fired. And Brad, you and I were talking before, 3 guys was, well, why do you fire him now as opposed to waiting 3 weeks when you don't have to pay $16 million? And you explained.
Well, I think that's been coming for Scott Frost for a while, and now in hindsight, they probably should have done that last year if the money wasn't an issue for them. But if you know you want to make a change in your program, then you don't want to leave him there in case they turn it around. Then what do? Then you can't make a change in your program. So I think that the argument for Neal Brown is you said a lot of that, and I think you go back to the reason you hired him. And he did check every box. He had won at a G5 level. He had been a previous head coach. He had done this before. He's been able to recruit. I think it's clear the recruiting, at least on paper, has gotten better. Now, that world has changed since you've hired him, as we outlined earlier with the losses. So that's switched, but the classes have continued to look good on paper. And I think the challenge when you're evaluating coaches in this position is you have to look at that. Are you close, but those few mistakes that have been catastrophic are keeping you from getting over the hump? Or are you a long way away and the pain of a change is worth the rebuild? Because I think that's what you have to remember. If you remove this particular coaching staff, never mind the money for a minute, you remove this staff and have to go get it again, who's the ideal candidate next? What will the resume of the ideal candidate look like?
What Neal Brown's
It will look exactly like what Neal Brown's did. So you're hoping to get that same thing, but what have you done? You've restarted the process again. What happens in the transfer portal? How many guys do you lose? How many years does it take to get back to even where you are today before moving forward? Nobody knows the answer. Maybe it doesn't take any time. And you make a hire, and it's a great hire. It's a home run hire, and you find a genius, and you take off, and you win a bunch of games. But you don't know that right now. And that's where it gets really tricky for athletic directors. There's a lot of money on the line. Fans are getting upset. You got to try and win games, but you're trying to evaluate how close are you to getting over that hump. That's the crux of the question here.
Mm-hmm. Totally with you on that. That's the call that needs to be made. The emotion of it, obviously, is if you make decisions in anything in life based upon emotion, most of the time not the right decision. You have to make an evaluation. Are you closer or are you farther away from where you need to be, just as you said? And I would submit that you're closer than you are farther away. I mean, you want to play the optimist in this thing. Don't drop the pass at Pitt. Don't muff the punt on Saturday. Don't commit the illegal hit, and you're 2-0.
Yeah.
So are you 100 miles away? No, you're not 100 miles away from a win. You're a couple, 3 plays away. So I would submit you're closer than you're farther away. And so as you guys continue to say, play the next 10 games. Just play the next 10 games and then make an evaluation. That's where it goes.
There's an interesting example in West Virginia's history because, and it relates to the unfortunate passing Saturday of Frank Cignetti, who passed away at the age of 84. And if you ask just West Virginia fans, what do you remember about Frank Signetti? And say, well, that was, and I was here, I was in school then, and also was working, and that say, boy, that was a lean time. 76 to 80 weren't very good. Lost a lot of games, were very good, and Frank Signetti got fired. Frank Signetti had success at every place he was in southwestern Pennsylvania before he came to West Virginia, and then afterward IUPs in the College Football Hall of Fame. And he was fired after 4 years. And I looked at that roster for the 1980 team that Don Nehlen took over. Oliver Luck, Robert Alexander, Walter Easley, Mickey Walzak, Darrell Miller. There were
Darryl Talley,
Folks,
Dennis Folks.
I mean, there were a lot of good players on it. So he might have been, who knows? He might have been a year away. You don't know. Now he had great success under Don Nehlen. So, just that.
No, I think you make a fair point. And what would have happened if Frank Signetti was allowed to make the move to the new stadium? But I would imagine at that time, they said, new stadium, let's get a change. And
yeah, there was that going on.
Man, you think about what Frank Signetti did. I mean, he was literally on deathbed, right? He had the last rites.
He had cancer.
He had the last rites given to him while he was the coach here, battling cancer. And then think of what he did after he left. As you said, he goes to IUP. They play for 2 national championships, and he's in the College Football Hall of Fame. So, yeah, sometimes it just takes breaks. And at this point, they haven't happened here.
Oliver Luck had a great story. He said when they were recruiting him, they drove as fast as they could past the old stadium and went to where the new stadium was going to be.
Yeah. Tony in Petersburg. Guess he's texted this while the game was going on. Tony, Kansas just tied it up, or in your words, knotted it up. The first thought that came to my mind is, how old is Tony? A memory that I share with my son is squirrel hunting with my late father and listening to you call the game. I think I was his age at the time. I'm now 38. Thanks for the memory. So he thinks knotted up means like that's an old person thing. Is that something you would say, Hoppy? Knotted up?
I'd say tighter than Dick's hat band.
P.S. I did read this multiple times and wasn't able to reduce. Sorry. P.P.S. Happy belated birthday. P.P.P.S. That was sickening. Wow. Hi, guys. Matt and Milton. And then Matt hit me with like about 4 in-game texts, but I just took it down to this last line. Might hit the shine jug twice tonight. Okay, texter. You guys should rename the show the 3 Neil Brown Apologists. Let's hear the excuses this time. Hoppy, quote, you've got to give him 5 years. Brad, the numbers say if you lose to a lowly Power 5 team at home, the next year you beat them on the road by an average of 1.5 points. Tony, quote, he gets it. He understands the culture. He's honest in his answers. End quote. And this gentleman says, fire that man. So like I said, and that's just.
Who is that one from?
Didn't give a name.
Texture is from where? Who?
Wait, no, it's I didn't give a name that I know.
Oh, there was no name on that one? Okay.
That was just, again, I'm giving a representative share of the text. There's more of those than that. There's more of those than that. Mason in Mason County, gentlemen, now that stung. So when does basketball season start? Texter, Sean from Raleigh. I have no trouble being concise this time. Catastrophic mistakes again and again. Defense, awful. I'm not sure this can't-miss hire is going to work out despite all the good things, and it really ticks me off that West Virginia is trapped in this calamity at such a crucial time in this era of change. Bob and Williams.
Well, that is a good point. That you'd like to be on the radar when all this is going on. And right now, you are very far off of the radar.
Bob in Williamsburg. On what was a very exciting day across the country, WVU football does not look like one of the top 60 teams this season. Tyler from Beckley. You guys asked people to keep it short. So here it is. I'm sick of the excuses, sick of investing my time and money in this. I don't want another cringe-worthy video from Neil. I want wins, period. I don't care if you can recruit, program, or fundraise. Win. Evan in Iowa, Scopes, spreadsheet, Triple H, all capital letters, oof. That is all.
Yeah.
Seth in Florida, hoppy, hoppy, hoppy. Brad, Tony, woke up Sunday morning with the taste of bile in my mouth from last night's debacle. In your opinion, why does our team continue to make massive mental errors at the absolute worst times? Game-ending drops, muffed punts, offsides on the goal line, roughing the passer, and overtime. In your opinion, who is to blame for this heartbreaking trend of mental collapse?
Well, that roughing the passer was a killer. That was a killer.
No question. No question. I mean, so to answer your question,
I didn't see the call. I mean, I assume it was a good call.
yeah, I mean, so the thing on that is, in the beginning of a season, officials are very, very sensitive to points of emphasis. I think you saw it most clearly in the Alabama-Texas game when they called that horrifically bad roughing the passer in the end zone. It was terrible. Why? It's early in the season. Just like in basketball, these guys get chastised by their supervisor of officials to make the calls, that they want to emphasize. By the third week of October, play it on. But I thought, did you see the Alabama? I'm sure you did, right? Was that bad or was that bad?
Well, it was not only the wrong call, a bad call, it was a confusing call. They totally botched that.
Absolutely.
That
was a Big 12 crew.
So when they sacked the guy and he rolled over on top of the guy, and then we had to turn the sound because they're like, what are they doing? What are they doing here? What possibly are they looking at? Yeah. Didn't handle that well.
Chris in Marietta. His hometown is Mullins. Gentlemen, congrats on number 400. We should have known Sir Patrick White would give us all the most memorable, quotable line as a state rallies not behind a mistake-ridden football team coach, but hoppy, hoppy, hoppy.
That's the rallying cry.
Cheers to 400 more. I don't think there'll be an 800th.
You don't think?
No.
Why not?
I really don't like you. And it's about time we just call this thing off.
You don't like this or you don't like me?
You. No. I mean, no, realistically, let's think about this.
Okay.
It took us 5 years to get to 400.
Yeah.
Dude, we're going to do 400 more of these?
Yeah, why not?
So that would be 20, what the hell year is it? Is it 22?
22, 2027.
2027? How old are you?
68, 67, 60. Oh, never mind.
Well, as I said, there won't be an 800th.
That in and of itself is indicative of, well, there might be two guys before the game.
Well, when we do number 800, we're going to come visit you at the assisted living.
I appreciate that.
You're good. You got 5 more in you. Easy.
5. Give me the ball.
Easy.
Give me the ball.
You think there'll be 800, Senator?
That's a good question. Don't know.
Hoppy, here in the musical industry, we just went our separate ways. It was all good. We had a good run,
No, we're going to get the band back together.
Hoppy wanted to do some solo stuff. It was okay. We left on good terms. Maybe one day we'll get back together. Hello.
Brad was a complete ass. I couldn't work with him anymore.
There was just creative differences when we came into the studio. At first everything was fine, but then he became so
That very
uncivil.
well could be the undoing. That might actually be the undoing. Understood.
All right, hey.
Tony, severe drug and alcohol abuse.
Hey, no levity. Knock it off. All right, here we go. This is Matt from Morgantown, longtime listener, many-time texter. I want to preface that this is going to be a long text, so apologies in advance. I'm a lifelong Mountaineer fan, 2-time alum. I believe that I speak for most of Mountaineer Nation when I say enough is enough. When do we begin to hold Coach Brown responsible for the product on the field? While I understand he isn't out there blowing coverages or committing penalties, it's his responsibility to have the team ready and mentally prepared. During pretty much interview and post-game, he's given softball questions that he can give political answers to. Tony, During one of your many interviews with him this week, please ask him all the following. We're sitting at 0-2. Where do the wins come from? How do you plan to become bowl eligible? With a winning percentage below 500 after 4, what reasons do you think fans have to stay invested in this program and trust the climb? Yeah, we can answer that. We can ask those types of questions. Not a problem. Thank you for listening. Texter Andrew in Little Rock, who used to live in Parkersburg. Hello. Scopes, Senator of Spreads, and Hoppy. To abstain from being overly discursive and prolix. Is that the right way to say that, Hoppy? Prolix?
I'll have to check.
I'll sum this up into a simple question. Who wins more in the Big 12, West Virginia or those red-headed, big-footed, blue-necked, squawking poultry from the plains? Also, the calls for Neil Brown to be fired at this point are absurd. However, if the answer above turns out to be the latter, is it too early to foretell that if Jimbo can't beat a Mountaineers team, he may just join one?
Prolix means using or containing too many words, tediously lengthy. So good use of the word prolix.
Very good. Matthew from Morgantown Kroger. Apathy. That's the word that best describes my feeling toward the program right now, and I'm not feeling alone in those feelings. With each game, my interest, my passion levels decrease. With NIL, transfers, conference realignment, and struggling the past 3.5, it's all been a snowball effect. I don't know how much longer I'm going to spend my disposable income supporting subpar programs. Seth in Williamstown. We want to say that Neil had a bare cupboard when he arrived. Well, Lance Leipold has to build his own cupboard before he can stock it. He took one of the worst programs in FBS, and within 17 months, upsets of Texas and West Virginia on the road. Also, Marshall, under a second-year coach, goes in South Bend and beats Notre Dame. Meanwhile, we're in year 4 waiting on a signature win. I just don't trust the climb anymore. Please show me the climb.
I think we've gone from where we are now, and again, 2 games in, but also going back to last season where you lost the bowl game and it was an average, very average season. You cannot, and I don't think they're saying trust the climb anymore, but you've gone from trust the climb to fear the decline. I think that's where we are. It feels like you're not getting better, although you're better offensively, but you're not winning games. So I think you're at a fear the decline moment as opposed to trust the climb.
Greg in Catlettsburg. Tony, Hoppy ×3. Belated birthday. May your play calling prowess continue for many years. With all due respect, Rutgers now 2-0. We're 0-2. Yeah, they probably beat a bad FCS team. Kansas beat a bad FCS team, scoring 56 points. We at home held them to 55. Who in the Big 12 has impressed you guys so far, even though it's only been 2 games? I like K-State. They feel more like a dark horse with a solid team. Sound wins. That was a nice win for them against Missouri.
It was.
And
Texas Tech had a nice win, too. I mean, it was beat the Holgersons.
Dana went to overtime 2 straight weeks. Now they got Kansas at home this week.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one.
And also, I was fired up that Iowa State beat Iowa.
Oh, my gosh. That game was...
Dude.
Iowa blocked 2 punts and lost. I gave you the stat last year. What was it, 90% you block punt, you win? Block 2, lost.
So it's
they scored 7 points.
They had a 180% chance to win since they blocked 2 points.
Good Lord.
At Iowa.
Rutgers beat Wagner on Saturday.
I know.
I'd like to get Wagner on the schedule.
Hey, what's up with their offense at Iowa?
Not very good.
Not very good.
New OC, right?
Yeah, Kirk Ferentz's son, Brian, having a tough start. But that's Iowa. I mean, that's not that. I mean, that's what they've done. They're not doing anything different. Kirk Ferentz has been there for 20-some years. They're doing what they do.
Well, score 13 points instead of 7. I mean, that was that was a bad game. It was just a bad game. I mean, neither team could do anything.
Well, that's partly because the Iowa. So that was all Iowa based, in my opinion. That Iowa defense is really good. Bottled up Iowa State. Yeah. Now that Iowa State had a big turnover, they're going and score. Iowa's offense is just anemic. It can't do anything. It's got a great defense, bad offense.
We got 7 tight ends. Throw to one of those guys. Brad, that Marshall game on, and you know what stood out about that was Marshall pushed those guys around. Pushed them around. It's a great win for Marshall.
Tremendous win.
Yeah, speaking of being under fire, Marcus Freeman now 0-3 as a head coach at Notre Dame.
Oh.
Yeah. Yep.
And before we get any text, that's 1 game last year in the bowl game they lost and 2 this season.
Texter, who should people be mad at over the loss to Kansas? This year, we were to have maybe the best defense in the Big 12. I don't know where you ever saw that. I'd never heard that. But anyway, continuing. Do the veteran players that left the program, we have so much inexperience in the back end that they were out of position most of the night? Who are we to be upset with? Neil for not keeping the veteran guys that left, Jamal Adai for taking a couple with him, the transfer portal, NIL, those that bailed out in the program, etc., or all of the above? All of the above. All of the above. It's the snowball effect. It's the snowball effect, no question. P1 Jason in Dallas. A very somber hello to you fine gentlemen. Is an uncatchable ball not a thing in college football? When Malachi Ruffin got flagged for pass interference near the end of the first quarter, I thought that not even Robert Wadlow on stilts could have caught that ball. Anyway, I'll cut it short because I'm grocery shopping at Target, and I'm going to have to figure out if grocery shopping at Target constitutes targeting so I can flag myself and back up the cart 15 yards. I should probably consult the world's leading physicists and engineers because football administrators obviously can't figure it out. At least Pitt lost. Love the show.
Was that a pass interference or a holding?
Well, I would comment on that, but whenever I comment on officials, I seem to be the only person in the United States that gets criticized for doing so.
Was that
everybody in America criticizes officials? I do. I get texts and tweets that I'm whining and crying.
You lost your mind.
The ball
Saturday.
broke a window in the club section, and it was still called pass interference. I'll leave it at that. I watched it again this morning.
Did you?
I'm done. I'm not going to say anything. I get enough hate tweets as it is about defending Neil Brown. I don't need to get it about officials when.
Well, this has nothing to do with Neil Brown. This has to do with the call.
I know, and I said I'm the only person in America that when I criticize officials, I get texts and emails telling me I'm whining and I'm crying and I'm defending and just go win games. It was a completely uncatchable ball. I have no answer for why that was called because it wasn't called defensive holding. It was called pass interference. Defensive holding, right, should eliminate the uncatchable part, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe the flag was thrown because it did break a window.
Might have broke a damn window at the hospital. The new children's hospital was in jeopardy on the throw.
You're exaggerating. You're exaggerating that. Actually, it went straight into a tuba in the Mountaineer Marching Band.
There was a dude at Sheetz getting gas, and it flew all the way over all of it, NIOSH all of it, and hit the guy at the gas pump. That's a flag. See, now you made me do it. Now I'm going to get all the texts are going to come in that I'm whining and crying about officials, and that's why it's not why West Virginia lost. You don't need to send me an email. It was a bad call, though.
Nathan in Charleston, South Carolina. I will keep this short per Scopes' coaching up the listeners. Over under on the attendance for the Towson game, 42.5.
Over.
Hall of Fame weekend, by the way. Geno, Stedman, and Tavon all will be enshrined. I don't know if Geno, I'm sure he won't be. And I doubt Tavon.
Really, all three going in?
At the same time. All became eligible this year. How can you not?
As well they should.
Yeah.
I mean, you could not
right.
do it, right?
That's a good group.
It's appropriate. They're going in at the same
like
time.
Pat and Steve.
Good trio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
You know what? You know what's tragic? You know what I remember about that year? Texas Tech.
Yeah.
That's stand. I just
can't get that out of your head, huh?
Cannot. Even the horse was sick and didn't run that day, and they still beat West Virginia.
It was too windy to take the horse out.
Horse couldn't stand up.
Horse couldn't stand up. It was too windy.
Tried, couldn't.
Remember, the horse did not run. Remember?
Yeah, Jason Morrow did.
Oh, Jason Morrow. He's still catching passes. How many did he catch?
He got a bunch.
It'll be less than we think because in my head I have like 73.
They were just great seam shots, like right down the hash.
Oh, my gosh. I'm going to check right now. What year was that?
That was 12.
12.
Texter. Sean in Athens, West Virginia. Tony, Brad, and Hoppy. I'm too sad to use nicknames. Living in the southern part of the state, the Virginia Tech rivalry is as important for me as Pitt. I plan to be in Blacksburg for the game. I've been incredibly excited. However, that excitement has changed to worry after this week's performance. I just saw on the ESPN FPI, they predict that West Virginia will go 1-11. Now I am more nervous than a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. My question is this, with a loud portion of the fan base calling for Coach's head, isn't there something short of winning out that he can do to get them back on his side? Love you guys and the show.
Morrow he only caught 5 passes, but for 156 yards.
Oh, my.
And a long of 61. Sestegi was 32 of 42 for 499 yards and 6 touchdowns.
What was Geno?
Geno was 30 of 56 for 278 and 1 touchdown. And Tavon Austin had 10 catches for 92 yards.
Geno tonight against Russell Wilson,
Yeah,
Monday
how
Night
about that?
Football.
Mm-hmm.
How about that? So Geno's lasted 10 years. Just kind of meandered around for 10 years in the league. That's
Still
good.
playing.
That's good living.
Good for him.
Same thing with Tavon. Good living.
for him.
So to answer his question, short answer is you win. So that's it. I mean, the only antidote, not anecdote, the only fix for this is you win games. And slowly but surely, when you do that, people regenerate and they get excited.
As of today, Kansas is in first place in the league.
So that's what you got to do. I mean, that's the only thing you can do is win. That's the only thing. The absolute only thing you can do is win. And if and when you're able to do that, it quenches and it takes like an antacid. It takes away that burning disappointment and sensation, and it makes you feel a little bit better. Wins are the the catalyst that make you just kind of feel better, and that hasn't happened.
And you just hope now, just like you saw with the receiver group, if you take one niche area, that now overall program-wise, you clean up some of those mistakes, and that's the difference, and that you are, in fact, a few plays away, not a few miles away. Gives these defensive guys in particular a chance to continue to learn the system. The offensive guys continue to grow. That's why you're playing the season, but you've got to start. You got to go now. You've got to win some games starting this week against Towson, which you should do. Then that Blacksburg one, that's going to be a fun week, man. You got to go get it.
Is there a line for Towson?
I haven't seen one yet.
Okay.
I haven't checked this morning.
You think
those will come later because it's an FCS.
Yeah, that's a later deal.
Then after Tech, you got to go to Texas, and Texas defense looked a lot better on Saturday.
How about that game?
A lot better.
How about that game, huh?
Now, Ewers might still be out for a while.
He is,
but
4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks.
But the
won't be
card was...
They're going to miss the West
he was
Virginia
fine.
game.
He was fine.
Yeah.
They'll miss the West Virginia game now.
Bijan Robinson run hard?
No.
Yeah, but only went for
Not
50
all.
yards.
Yeah, but does he run hard?
Yeah.
He could be a problem. He could be a handle.
Yeah.
That was a
We'll
good
see. Texas okay, so there's a good example, right? Played great in a loss. Probably should have been a win. Can they be consistent? Do they just automatically go 11-1 now? You don't know that.
You don't know.
Right. They've got some holes.
Yeah, you don't know. Three Guys Before the Game is brought to us by the good folks at the Burdette Camping Center. Reminder, right now, $150 off on parts, sales, and service for whatever it is that you may need by visiting Burdette Camping Center. Just tell them you want the Three Guys discount. Burdette Camping Center, available to you at burdettecamping.com. And by Comax Business Systems, they offer managed IT services for your business. Are you safe in your business? Is your data protected? Are you good? Are you backed up? If not, they can help. Comax Business Systems, an award-winning business, and your full-service Konica Minolta dealer. You can visit them at comaxwv.com. That's comaxwv.com. All right, music's on. Episode 400. So, I mean, that is a was that a fair representation?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Right.
guess. I mean, you probably struck the ones that had foul language in it, but
There wasn't one F-bomb. There wasn't any.
Really?
There was not one swear word in any of that. Well, I mean, we got a very cultured listener base.
Glad to
Yeah,
hear
I mean,
that.
there were attacks. There were attacks on us. But
That's okay.
That's fine. I mean, I appreciate, in all sincerity, I appreciate the emotion. Again, that's why this is good. People care. If they didn't care, I mean, if you were just in some place where it was just like a shoulder shrug, then that's bad. Apathy is the killer. Apathy is the killer. So that's cool. Been there. Move on. We're back on Thursday. We'll preview the Towson Tigers, who come in at 2-0. Victories over the Bucknells and a victory over Morgan State. Huh?
Okay.
1 o'clock kick. Old school on Saturday. We're back on.
ESPN Plus? Where is it?
Is it? Do they do TV? I don't even know. Does the TV still work?
Don't know.
I don't know. Radio guy.
I understand you're ready to go. I'm just saying that
Yeah, I think it is.
we need like a crew of 3 technicians to get the game on.
Yeah, it is. It's ESPN Plus. All right. Thank you to our producer, Jonathan. Mason County, Mineral County, Union County, Tyler County,
Tucker County.
Berkeley County, Morgan County, Harrison County, Wetzel County, Ahia County.
Nice Ohio County reference.
Yeah. What county do you think in West Virginia gets the least mention of all counties?
Maybe Wirt.
Alphabetically, they just got to, just by the time they get down late.
Or Hancock.
Yeah, Hancock don't get a whole lot. Wirt, that's a good one. Wirt and Hancock don't get a whole lot of mention.
Pendleton.
Everyone always talking. No, see, Pendleton gets pretty good because like Snowshoe and that whole deal. Yeah, that's fair. You're too big. Kanawha, Monongalia, those are your 2 biggies, I'd say. Right? Kanawha, Monongalia,
Wetzel.
Gas and oil. Wetzel gets a lot of good mention. Wetzel, Doddridge,
Doddridge.
Tyler. All right,
You want me to go through all of them?
Nah, we're good.
Jefferson.
See you Thursday.
Up sure.